Hey there, we're the Westlaw Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Skoskauspo.
Well, gentlemen, this is our 575th episode. Just a little milestone here, and we've been going at this for a long time. But, you know, with episode 575, it kind of brought to mind something special, Skuz.
Yeah, we got to do a little haiku action here. A little 575. So, if you will, in homage to our topics for this evening, from sandy diamond to glorious lakefront shores, Cats are Big Ten champs.
Well done, sir.
Just sit on that one for a sec. That's gorgeous. I love it. But yeah, we are Northwestern Big Ten champs, regular season champs in softball, taking the series from Indiana and getting a little help from Ohio State along the way. Not that we needed it, but we took care of business on the diamond. And then on Saturday, to kind of cap it all off, was a great win over Penn State. Finished off oddly with a little thunder and lightning, moving things indoors. And I know, John, you'll tell us all about...
We'll get to the hilarity of that, yeah.
we'll get there in a sec. But, John, you had the pleasure of being part of this non-revenue women's sports tailgate. Wish I could have been there. My daughter got sick, and I wasn't able to be there. But I was so bummed, and especially after talking with Sydney Supley last week, just was really excited to get out there and be a part of it. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there. But John, tell us all about it. I mean, it sounded like an incredible time.
It was so great. And again, I was really bummed for you that you couldn't make it. I think if there was a theme that I heard from multiple people who weren't able to make it, it was people just seeing how awesome it was and how amazing everything ended up being and just wishing that they could come out, which is awesome because this will not be the last time that we do this. But it just could not have gone any better. We were joking with people while we were there that I think if you had asked 2.5 weeks ago when I think Brad May started putting this together and we jumped on board with him and we've all been kind of pounding the pavement together to make this happen, that maybe if you would have given me the 100 out of 100 situation for everything breaking exactly how we would have wanted to, I think we got 95% of the way there. And the remaining 5% would have been Michigan losing on Friday or something like that, that would have literally set up a situation where a Northwestern win or a Michigan loss on Saturday would have won softball the championship that day. So we'd literally be looking at 2 championship games in the same day. This is minor quibbles because everything else worked perfectly. As the week got closer and closer to the event, the weather got better and better and better, and then we were blessed with, I mean, as we'll get to hilariously, right up until the final minute and a half of Lacrosse, it was glorious weather all day. It was 70 and partly cloudy. It was glorious. And yeah, we showed up bright and early. I showed up with all of our stuff, and Brad May showed up, and we set up together. And shouts to Brad, who had showed up with his friend Harlan, who was a great supporter of this effort also, and shouts to Brad, he had a spread. He had the meat selection was incredible. He was coming around with appetizers. It was amazing.
John, I don't I'm sorry to interject here, but I feel like we've talked a lot about this moniker, Women's Non-Revenue Sports Weekend, and which is came really from the mind of Brad and a group of alumni that are not in Chicago for the most part. Can we describe in more detail for folks how this came to be from their perspective? Do we know?
I think Brad had just always you know, it was his, I think, again, his friend Harlan, was the one who came up with the WNRS as abbreviation for Women's Non-Revenue Sports. But Brad, I think he just always wanted to do it. The idea of like honoring these unbelievable sports teams and making this thing actually happen, and then the wherewithal to look down the calendar and see that you potentially had this major sports day coming down the pike that ended up being the exact thing that we wanted it to be. And as soon as he connected with us, we all connected through Jay Sharman, through like the posts. We of course were immediately like, this is exactly what we've wanted. We've wanted to do this exact same kind of thing forever. We've always wanted to have a spring tailgate, just to have a spring tailgate, let alone to support our unbelievable women's sports teams. So as soon as we heard about it, we just jumped in, all the way in, and we ended up having, just working as hard as we could to make this thing happen. But just geographically, to give everyone an idea on how this thing came off, Associate AD Scott Airy, who events and facilities, a lot of you know him, just fantastic guy, did us an awesome job with giving a base setup of, porta potties, dumpsters, all the things you need to properly operate a tailgate in the west lot, north end of the west lot. So to give everyone perspective, and I think on Twitter some of you saw it, we were all kind of looking southwest at the teardown of the press box that was going on.
It looked like that thing was hanging on by a thread.
Literally everyone was looking, being like, this thing's going over at any second. That was what everyone had. Yeah, like there were cranes hammering at it. How it did not go over, I have no idea. But so that's kind of where we were. North central area of the west lot. So like I said,
were you kind of parallel with the baseball field or with Treenan's?
More parallel with that, right? So, if you were to draw a line all the way through Welsh Ryan to the J, that's probably about what we were parallel with.
Sure.
But because of that setup, we kind of set up
first baseline extended instead of 50-yard line extended, as we used to say.
Right. So we set up to the right of the stuff that events and facilities set up for us, and then to the left, John Borovica and the N Club partnered with the softball alums, as they do, to set up a big softball tailgate. And they had like a van with like a smoker. They had like a whole setup. Their tailgate was just as impressive as our tailgate, if not more impressive. And both of those two sides ended up being incredibly well attended. We're not going to go through and list all the different people who came off, but I mean, like, shouts to our folks from the Wild Side who showed up, shouts to the student journalists who showed up, shout to all the players' families from softball who showed up, many people. Of course, we mentioned Sydney Supley because we had her on the pod last week, had another opportunity to talk with her for a long time. So many people, and I think to me, one of the things that symbolized the spirit of the event and how everyone gathered exactly how great it was and how enjoyable this was that, as I mentioned, you kind of had a gap between these two mass gatherings of people where those facilities were, and there was a little bit of an open space, and people were crisscrossing back and forth across that space all the time. People from one side couldn't wait to get to the other side and vice versa. It was truly this gathering of just a ton of people having fun celebrating Northwestern sports. And there was obviously a massive softball flavor to it because there were so many softball alums there and so many softball families to it. And that was just fantastic. And it led to, right into us going and watching a softball game at the J. So it was so fantastic. And again, for me to list all of the fantastic conversations with all of the people we had, be they parents, be they athletes in other sports, be they, again, student journalists. We had, of course, Jay showed up. We had other people from Northwestern showed up. Like, it would take forever, but it was clearly just a total celebration. Oh, it was.
Like, and to your point, you said it off the top. Like, this was everything we hoped it would be, and like I'm gutted I couldn't be there. My daughter turned 10 on Friday. I would have been murdered in my sleep if I had tried to leave for the weekend. But this is like high on my priority list to get up to in the future. And I hope, like, for anyone who's listening, like 100%, this is a thing that's going to happen again. These programs have, part of the reason we're celebrating these programs is that they've both had such sustained success over a long period of time. And it's a beautiful thing to behold of how good these programs are, how competitive they are year in and year out, even when they turn over a ton of the team, as we'll get into more detail with the softball squad. So I like it's such a celebration that went down, and a fun way to do it. I'm ecstatic that it came together the way it did.
Well, and one other thing I'll mention, just because it serves when we are talking about I think when we think of non-revenue sports, right, and we think of women's non-revenue sports, because it's Northwestern, softball and lacrosse jump to the tops of everyone's minds too. Field hockey's right there.
Yeah.
And not only is field hockey right there, there is a very notable field hockey lacrosse crossover going on right now. And in a really interesting way, field hockey ended up, for us in a really important way, being represented in two really fun ways for me. One was Lauren Wattis and her father showed up at the tailgate bright and early, and got to have an awesome conversation with her, specifically geared toward she's going to be playing, with Team USA this summer. And some of that with an eye on potentially the Olympic trials and the Olympics. And there's a group of ex-Northwestern players, Maddie Zimmer on down, who are like eyeing the Olympics and a chance to play for the Olympics. And we got to talk about that, and like how awesome of a conversation was that. And then got to talk with Lindsey Frank's family at the softball game. So it was like, that's a player who plays both field hockey and lacrosse for Northwestern, and subsequently scored goals in the Big Ten championship later in the day. So that was really cool too, because I think when we were really thinking about women's non-revenue sports, we were thinking about softball and lacrosse, but we were really thinking about field hockey too. And as we've as we've mentioned on this pod many times before, we always feel guilty relative to field hockey because football just sucks all the oxygen out of the room in the fall. And we always end up wishing we talked more about field hockey than we do. So it was really cool that piece of it was there too. But yeah, as you were saying, it was a celebration. It was so many people just coming together and celebrating everything that's special about this Northwestern family. And it preceded two great Northwestern game experiences.
So let's talk about the game. And start with softball, because you guys went directly from the tailgate, walked around Welsh Ryan, walked around the cavern. First, what does the remains of Ryan Field, with the last vestiges of press box notwithstanding, what's the feel there? Like, what's going on? Is it a big pit or
apocalyptic? Yeah, it looks. We were making Mad Max jokes on Twitter today, but it really does. It's one massive kind of open wasteland. There's nothing left at this point. It's just dust and dirt, except for that press box, except for the tattered remains of that press box, which again, like multiple people have been taking photos. I think I saw Dave Ennett post one this morning that was like jokingly circling the area he always called games from. And it's basically a hole at this point. Like the thing that he's pointing to is empty space. It really is, like at this point, it really does, like how the thing is not just teetering over. I have no idea, but they're really picking at the remains of the carcass of that press box.
It looks like a scene out of Stargate.
Yeah.
it really is crazy. But they're beyond that, they're done. Like that thing it is totally cleared out. It is just an empty construction zone aside from that. And there are multiple ways. There are multiple opportunities. As I was we'll get to this later, but sprinting back to my car much later in the day, I went past an open gate where you could just see inside the entire space, and like that, there's nothing there. It's just an empty chasm where Ryan Field used to be at this point. But yeah, so we walked past that, past all the construction stuff, and then into Welsh Ryan and into the entrance to the J. And yeah, we had a really good crew. We had our Nummalum friends who always tailgate next to us, and we had Jay, and we had Mike Hayes, friend of the pod, and we had Matt Shelton, who you all know from Wildcat Report. So it was, in fun, it's as a little aside, it was really funny watching the game with Matt Shelton, because the potential news about a Northwestern quarterback transfer that, we can talk about later sort of popped up on the radar, in the middle of the game. So we were sort of talking about that. And then that's something that I don't know. That may or may not be coming to pass, the whole whatever Taekwon Roberson thing. Like that may come to nothing, and by the end of the day that had kind of been refuted. So, but in any case, it was a great crew for the game, awesome weather for the game, an awesome environment. It was alumni day, so like the stands were packed, a ton of former players were there. Danielle Williams and Rachel Lewis did a race around the outfield carrying gigantic cutouts of their own heads. It was hysterical. The race started, Danielle Williams immediately bit it so hard, and Rachel Lewis had to stop and wait for her to get up, and then they ran it out, and it was hysterical. And they didn't get the win, but in a way not unlike the final game the next day, there was news before the end of the game that was really positive news, which was Michigan had lost game 2 of their series to Ohio State. So we knew, win or lose, Northwestern was going to get a chance to play for the title the next day. So when the comeback wasn't really materializing for the Cats as the game went on, everyone was still like, okay, it's okay. Let's just celebrate, Alumni Day here. Let's just celebrate the weekend, and the Cats will have a chance to play for it tomorrow and win it then. And that's exactly what they did. We should mention, too, that of the 3 games Northwestern softball played this weekend, the absolute barn burner was the Friday game, which was the game before the day before the tailgate. That was the game where the Cats put on that absolutely epic comeback with 2 outs. That started with Ayanna Lindsay's clutch hit down the third baseline and was punctuated by that monster Kelsey Nader home run. So that was the unbelievable game. And then the Cats took a loss the next day. But then, absolutely everything broke for them on Sunday.
I mean, what stands out to me just looking at these 3 games, and Sydney talked about it when we had her on last weekend, is that Indiana had a down year, but going into the season, they were expected to contend for the Big Ten title. And you can tell that they have the most important thing in softball, and that's just an absolute dominant pitcher on the mound in Brianna Copeland, who's also their leadoff hitter, I might add.
Huh.
And she pitched all of game 1. She pitched all of game 3, and she came in and pitched 5 innings in the middle of game 2. And for the majority of all that really held Northwestern in check. What's ironic across all 3 games, the team that scored first lost all 3 games. Indiana got out to a 3-run lead on Friday night. Northwestern clawed back. Northwestern scored the first run in game 2 before Copeland came in to relieve the starter. And then Indiana again got out to a 2-0 lead in game 3. But it does emphasize something that I think we've heard many times about this team that is just so true across this Northwestern softball squad. And not that it's more true this year, but given the circumstances of all the players that have that matriculated out of Northwestern coming into this season, the turnover in the roster, the loss of such a huge senior class in terms of talent, personality, etc. The resilience of this team to come back in these games and to fight and claw tooth and nail to the very end of every game. You heard Sydney describe Kate Drohan and just what she instills in her players, and it was just on display in spades this weekend. And yes, I know that Northwestern had won the championship before they completed that game on Sunday because Michigan had lost a second time to Ohio State, but I'm so happy they won that game, and they were able to celebrate just full-throated on the field at the end of that game, putting away Indiana and winning it for themselves, going into that Sunday with no help. It's just something that they'd earned, with all their resilience this year in the face of so much change and so much turnover.
It's always nicer to, even though it was over, but to win that game and be able to celebrate after a win rather than you lose and then you're celebrating because you backed into it. It's a better feel. I mean, you'll take it either way. I mean, champions are champions, but it is always a little bit nicer to come off that with a win.
Well, and also I think a lot, one of the things that sadly the game that we were at on Saturday that softball lost, that brought that streak, right? 40 something games at the J without a loss to an end. But kind of reinforcing what Scuzz was saying, a streak that didn't end is by winning Game 3 against Indiana. Northwestern's won every Big Ten series for the past 2 years, which is just incredible.
That's bonkers. That's
like
just,
what a team. And the other thing too that multiple people have, that I think we haven't even done as a good of job of drumming home over the past couple of days, that a couple of other people have, this. We talk about the massive turnover of this unbelievable group of players who finished up their careers at the end of last season. This team had Lauren Boyd and Grace Nito hurt for the entire season. That's the starting second baseman and the number one returning pitcher on a Big Ten championship team. And they lost both of those players for the entire season, and they still found a way to win a third straight championship. It was hilarious, though. Like, so for those of you who do not know, are not Greek or are not Orthodox, Sunday was Greek Easter. So we hosted Greek Easter at our house, and we're preparing to host my wife's whole family for Greek Easter. And as we are, I'm glued to the television watching the Ohio State-Michigan softball game because Ohio State has staked themselves to this 2-0 lead. And it was so tight. Ohio State won that game 2-1. Michigan had runners on second and third with 2 outs. And Ohio State managed to strike out the final batter. That's how tight it was. And that was the thing. And I think Northwestern was in the second inning, and they announced it to the J, and they knew. But like I said, like Scuzz said, I mean, they interviewed Coach Drohan right after that happened mid-game, and she was just locked in on the game. She was just like, we got to win the rest of this game. And they did, and then they celebrated. And right, it's just one more thing, the character of the team. It's this team.
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts.
Yeah, that's right. Shouts to Sydney. I was thinking about that again today, Scuzz, because that really was. I mean, people, I think the idea of cliche coach speak, and for anyone who don't know what Scuzz is referring to, is Sydney Supley on last week's episode specifically referenced that Kay Drohan would mention no shortcuts, but that she drummed it home and put action behind it. And this wasn't just like words that she said. It was their entire like modus operandi of the team, to the point that Sydney Supley feels like she can't cut corners on sidewalks right now because Coach Drohan was like, no shortcuts. Which again, it's like people talk about coach speak and things like that, but with Coach Drohan, it's real. And it's stuff that is ingrained into all of these players that governs everything that they do and is a big part of their success. And it's one of the reasons, she's the very best. She's up there with any other softball coach in the country. And who else can claim to have done what she's done over these past 3 years? It's absolutely amazing.
I mean, she was just named Big Ten Coach of the Year again. So,
yeah.
Tracks.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
If we hadn't said it already, I mean, three Big Ten championships in a row, including a third one after turning over a massive amount of the roster. And
it was like seven new faces and like 9 new starters due to injury. I mean, that's just to be able to come back, especially coming off last season, which ended just coming inches shy of Oklahoma City, and to come and have everyone graduate and then come back and just take it back. Got through the non-conference and then rolled into conference play. And when I say rolled, I mean rolled into conference play, just playing out of their minds and, taking their third consecutive title. Just a testament to just how incredible, or to take a page out of the Drohan's book, how remarkable these women are.
Yeah.
Hashtag be remarkable, right?
It truly is amazing. Yeah, right. That's right. And
so,
I think too. No, go ahead, Scuzz.
Well, I was going to pivot to pivot forward to the Big Ten tournament. But where were you going to go?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So what's next is Northwestern is the number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament, which means they get a first round bye,
which is nice.
Very, very nice. Well deserved. Good job. They will play the winner of the Purdue-Indiana 8-9 matchup. So that game's on May 8th. Wednesday, the Cats will play at 11 a.m. on noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central on Thursday against the winner of that first game, and then go on to a tilt with either one of Illinois, Minnesota, or Nebraska in the semifinal. So obviously they're going to be looking to win this tournament to, solidify their bona fides for the NCAA tournament and the College World Series. So we'll see how we go, but they're in prime position to continue meeting their goals and aspirations that they would have set out at the beginning of the year.
It's funny. I don't know what it is about the mentality this year, because again, you're absolutely right. And like there's a whole other season that starts right now, and this team is unbelievably talented, and let's see just how far they can go here. I think when I think of 2 years ago, the first Big Ten championship season, winning that championship was awesome. But there was definitely that Women's College World Series possibility hanging over that entire season, right? There was the feeling that COVID had kind of robbed them earlier, and that this team had everything, and were they going to do it, and did they have a chance to do it? And of course, ended up with that crazy super regional, and everything came together. That's all still very much on the table this season. I think there's just something so special about championship number 3 in a row. I mean, first of all, 3 in a row is just incredible. That's a dynasty. But there's something specifically about just how much this team turned over and that they were able to do this that makes it so special. So again, it's like, definitely don't want to give short shrift to the entire road ahead and all of the goals that are still in front of this team. But it's just really landed, I think, with Northwestern Nation how special this was to win this championship, and just the whole thing being so incredible. In terms of the talent on this team, man, for a team that turned over so many players, Lord have mercy, are there so many young, unbelievable players on this team. This is a team that has Kelsey Nader, Kansas Robinson, Emma Ray, all with at least 2 years of eligibility remaining. And that's, I mean, you could go on and on, right? I mean, Bridget Donaghy's another one. And then like so many players who are just barely cracking the lineup at this point, right? So on one hand, you have these amazing veterans. We talked about them last year with Sydney Supley, starting, right off the bat with Hannah Katie and Angela Zedak, of course. But this team, it is amazing. And I mean, it's quality, it's testament to the character of the team itself, but the amount of young talent that has come in, and you see it developing, and these players are getting better and better and better. Emma Ray is a classic example. Like Emma Ray is, I think, Sam, you mentioned she's the Big Ten Freshman of the Week right now. She's stepped in, from the very start of the season as this unbelievable defensive catcher, but she's hitting the cover off the ball right now. She absolutely obliterated a home run in Game 3 of this series. Off the Welsh Ryan Wall. And yeah, this team is, I mean, again, they're ascending. There's this young core of players who are just going to continue to get better and better and better, and that's going to start right now.
So I thought it was interesting, John. You made a tweet. So on Saturday, obviously, they celebrated the seniors on this team, and there were 3 seniors who were celebrated. You tweeted, John, like 3 rings, which was very appropriate for one of those 3 seniors, which was Hannah Katie, who's been on all 3 championship teams. And then for the other 2, Cammie Henry, 2 years with Northwestern.
That's a great point.
And then Ashley Miller, who joined the team this year, transferring from Michigan State. But the broader point I want to make is that this is an example of a team that is finding the balance between transfer portal and developing their talent through the program, which if you're going to be successful over multiple years and have a sustained program that operates at excellence, you've got to hit both of those things. You got to hit both of those nails on the head. And it's a testament to the culture of the program and the talent of the coaches to, identify the talent, attract the talent, but then have that talent come in and work well with the existing culture and the existing team. And that, it's not just the coaches, frankly, that goes to the players, the leaders on the team, et cetera. But I think, we've talked a little bit about this in hoops. Obviously, it's been a huge topic in football, but I think this is a really specific, great example of how those 2 things are working in concert with each other, which is the way it should be.
Absolutely. If you or a loved one is seriously injured by someone else's negligence, hire Kent Simpson of the Simpson Law Group. After over a decade prosecuting murder cases in Chicago, Simpson opened his own firm focused on wrongful death and personal injury cases. He specializes in car, truck, motorcycle, boat, and other transportation accidents, as well as construction accidents, medical negligence, slip and falls, product liability, and more. Millions recovered for clients. No fee unless he wins. The Simpson Law Group. Compassion, empathy, and vigorous advocacy. Go to simpsonlawgroup.com or call 312-332-2107 for a free consultation. And go Cats. So, John, softball game ends, and then you just walk down Central Street. How'd the day go? Take us into the afternoon.
Was there a parade like in on Bourbon Street?
I'm
imagining music and singing.
It was. I'll tell you this: the finish of the softball game was a heck of a lot less weird than the finish of the lacrosse game. We walked out, and a lot of people doubled back to kind of to the tailgate area, and got to have a couple more great conversations with people at the tailgate area. And then
I really thought you were going to say a couple more beers.
Yeah,
that's where my head would have been
absolutely.
That's okay.
Well,
Carry on.
I definitely had a beer for the road, and then walked. Yeah, I just left my car at Ryan Field. This will become significant later, and walked all the way back to campus, which I loved because it was a combination of really two walks that I used to do all the time as a Northwestern student, because we used to live. I lived for junior and senior year at Ridge and Noyes, so I used to always walk from Ridge and Noyes to Ryan Field, and also from Ridge and Noyes to campus, and this was basically those two walks combined. So that was fun. But showed up just in time for the start of the game, or actually just arrived. Penn State, who started that game hot, was already up 1-0 by the time I got up to my seat. And first of all, the environment, the weather. I mean, we talked about it, but it was the kind of day where you show up and you're like, holy crap, we're going to get to play football here. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I wanted to just touch on that real quick. I mean, to sit there and were you able to picture where the stadium was going to be? Could take us through in your mind how that looked and what it's going to be like.
Well, so first of all, shouts to the environment, right? Because you're looking in your vision. And by the way, I should say too, this was on everybody's lips who was at that game. Everybody was talking about it. Everyone who was sitting in the stands was being like, all right, so where are these stands going to go? How is this going to be laid out, etc. But one of the things that really helped capture the vibe, and to your point, Sam, helped picture it, was that Martin Stadium was absolutely packed. It was jammed to the gills.
I want to interject here because there's a lot of stupid people on the internet right now that keep making the Northwestern is going to play at their practice facility joke, and don't understand that this is a awesome venue as it stands today.
Your lacrosse stadium ain't like our lacrosse stadium.
Exactly. And in no way am I suggesting that this lacrosse stadium is fit to host football games, right? With the size and scale of what that is, which is why we're going to build temporary stands. But to tag this as a practice facility is missing a whole lot of the forest through the trees.
Right.
And for I've been to games at Martin Stadium. It's a freaking awesome environment. As it is today, and it's only going to be astronomically more exciting with the stadium built around it, as we have talked about.
Right, and it was a sellout, and it looked like a sellout. It was packed to the gills. I mean, we put up a photo of which I just walked in and immediately had to snap a photo. I was like, this looks incredible. I'm looking down the line at all those stands, and it's just packed, right? And you heard it, you felt it. Unbelievable atmosphere the entire game. And right, you could look and you'd be like, yes, I get it. The numbers, it's never going to compare to a massive normal Big Ten football environment in terms of raw scale. But I'm also telling you, if those stands that were up for that lacrosse championship game, those become the smallest section of stands in the setup that's going to exist for football, you're going to feel it at these games. It's going to feel like a scene. It's going to feel loud, and the environment is going to be absolutely incredible. So,
and let's not forget that for the next couple of years, lacrosse and field hockey and soccer are going to be playing in that stadium as well.
Right. And again, you look at the crowd, and yes, were there some Penn State fans there? Sure. this was a 90 to 95% Northwestern crowd. It was Northwestern Nation showed out.
Yep.
And
Watching it on TV, like anytime Penn State scored, they just went back to the same teeny tiny little group of fans celebrating in the stands. But it was just that one little section, and you could tell that there weren't more.
there's going to be a concerted effort to pack the football stadium for lacrosse, and we're going to pull it off, and it's going to be incredible. And you definitely like felt it. And then people are talking about like, oh, we're not going to be able to see the sideline when those big stands are there, like at the south end zone. And it's like, yeah, you're not going to in person at the game, but you're not going to care because you're going to be at the friggin' game. And everyone watching on TV is going to be able to see the sidelines because the Big Ten Network is going to pull out all the stops to make sure that you see it. Could not be a more TV friendly environment to show a football game than what they're going to have there. So anyway, that was all it. In terms of the tenor of the game, it was basically a game that I think if you look statistically, you'll see that Penn State dominated the fourth quarter. But as we'll get to later, like it didn't really feel that way at the time. I mean, the game was basically salted away by the time the crazy ending happened. But what they did do, Penn State jumped on Northwestern early, and that's a damn good team. You come away being like, Penn State is good. They're good. They're really fast.
Yeah, that was one thing that just struck me watching it on TV is just how quick they were. I mean, they were just like getting the ball and just driving hard. It wasn't like pass it around and try to set something up. They were gunning for the net and like scoring real fast.
Yep. And then second and third quarters was just absolutely, as we've said many times, when this team wants to be the Death Star and everything is clicking, they are peak Georgia football, they're peak Alabama football, whatever your metaphor is, because they went on an 11-1 run where they just rolled Penn State. And that was the game right there. And it was all of your top players, everyone who just the excellence for all of the biggest names, everyone that you think of, right? Skane, Taylor, Amonte, Kuykendall. They were unbelievable. For me, I mean, watching Taylor and Skane in person those two are such unbelievable athletes to watch.
It's my biggest regret of having not been there this weekend. I like much in the way that I really wanted to come see Boo play. I really wanted to come see Izzy play, and it didn't happen.
And what was awesome too is coming out of that semifinal game against Hopkins was an uncharacteristically quiet game for Izzy Skane, and it left her 5 goals shy of tying the record heading into this game, and 5 goals is what she got, and she tied it in the fourth quarter, and it was fantastic.
With a ridiculous goal. I mean, that tying goal was absolutely filthy.
I mean, like all credit to Skane on the score. The pass was bananas.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was so impressive, and just to watch. I mean, the opportunity to watch. And you can watch it on TV, but to be able to see the whole field all the time, right? And just see
it's like watching hockey in person.
Yeah,
ice hockey in person. People who've watched it only on TV and then go in person are like, "Whoa, what is this?" And lacrosse is the same experience.
Right, exactly. And I think just to be able to watch, like for example, the way Carly Mahoney and Sammy White were always setting up on defense, right, and be able to always monitor that situation and see the way that part of the game is played is really fun to watch. And to just be able to watch the draw controls and then see how it plays out and everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to be able to see all these top players in person was so incredible. But then, so Northwestern, thanks to this unbelievable middle of this game, stakes themselves to this big lead. And then Penn State they kick into gear in the fourth, and they chip away at it a little, and they chip away. And then you're like, oh, like, all right, let's like stop this or whatever. And then Northwestern gets just enough goals. And then it finally reaches this point, right? Where with, I don't know how many minutes left, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. You're like, Northwestern's got enough. Penn State is not going to be able to catch them. And we're good to go. Skane gets her goal. Everyone's celebrating. You're like, here comes the championship. Let's see if by any chance.
Skane scored with 4:52 left to go up 4.
Right. And you are like, okay, like, we're going to celebrate, but let's see if Skane can get her final goal. And the key thing to remember here is everyone in those stands is looking east out towards the lake. So from where we're standing, it just looks like beautiful weather. We have no idea that there's this massive storm system barreling in on us. We're just like la-di-da-di-da. So when they suddenly announce that everyone has to clear the stands, it comes as an absolute shock. And everyone's like, what? Like, what's going on?
I didn't realize that. That's hysterical.
Yeah, and it was the most anticlimactic, weird thing, and it culminates in this moment because what's crazy is when they went inside and they finally finished this up in Ryan Fieldhouse, Penn State scored 2 goals. Like Penn State actually gave it a run, but there was just no
90 seconds to go.
Right, but there was just no way. There were 90 seconds left, and this thing was salted away. And of course, but what was weird is Northwestern knew they had won it with a minute and a half left, and there's this weird thing. So what they immediately do is they get the players off the field first, and all the Northwestern players get shuttled into this kind of open room in Walter Athletic Center directly facing the street and the stadium. So there's, if you know the layout of Walter, where all those glass windows are that directly face the road that runs right up along Martin Stadium, there was a whole big room in there that they put all the team in. So they just all start celebrating because they know they're about to win a championship. And then all the people who've been told to leave the stadium inevitably just get drawn, right? Like moth to a flame, to these giant windows where they can see the entire team celebrating. So everyone just ends up pressed up against these windows, like cheering on the team while they're all celebrating on the other side of the glass. It was bizarre. And again, of course, like they did one of the 30-minute delays, then it got recycled again, and then they're eventually like, look, we got to finish this inside, and then that's what they did. I was not there to see it. I had to get home, and I, at that point, was turning, looking at this hellacious weather system coming in from the west and remembering that I had parked in Ryan Field. and I basically was like, well, I got nothing to do. I basically have to sprint. I got to try to, jog this thing back and pray that I get to my car before the weather system gets to me. And friends, it did not work out. It did not in any shape or form work out. And
where were you when it hit?
I almost had reached Evanston Hospital, which you're thinking, oh, so you just had to go from Evanston Hospital to Ryan Field.
That's still like 3-4 blocks.
I reached Evanston Hospital when a wall of water hit me, and I was soaked to the bone by the time I even reached the Central Street stop, and then just was staring forlornly out into the water, being like, I'm just going to have to go for it. And so my day ended getting dinner at Mustard's, soaked to the bone, and that was it. But, I mean, it was an incredible day, and then got home and watched the highlights of the team winning and everything. But for the lacrosse team, I mean, what weird end to the season. But I think one of my takeaways was, and I think like the tournament as a whole hammered this home, is like Hopkins and Penn State are really good and specifically playing their best lacrosse in this tournament. And it very much felt like Northwestern played 2 games against 2 of the best teams in the country and got their very best game, and they were really tough wins, but the Cats gutted them out both times because they're the best team in the country. Like, that was my takeaway.
I mean, Northwestern coming off of a championship last year, and so the Cats typically play just top tier talent, non-conference.
Yeah.
All year, every year, right? So this was not different, but it really felt like Northwestern just had a enormous target on their back all season in a way that we probably haven't seen since the run of 6 championships several years ago. And on top of that, like bringing back all their top players, run it back one more time, right? Like everybody knows what they were going to do. Everybody knows how they were going to play. And I get the sense that the Cats had to weather the best game from every single team that they played throughout the course of this year. So 17 games of your opponent's absolute best. And that's it's amazing that they came through at 15-2. They had, you know, 2 losses by a total of 5 goals throughout the course of this year.
And they got the one back against Penn State.
And they got the one back against Penn State. You know, who knows? Maybe they'll see that. I think so. Going to the NCAA tournament, they won't see Penn State until a national semifinal. So they got that going for them. But may get a rematch with Denver in the first round, who gave them a pretty tough game on the road earlier this season. So
and a Denver team that they played in the Final Four last year, right?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. No, yeah, it's a final
right.
a Final Four rematch. Yeah, they yeah, no, it's super exciting, and obviously, I think you get used to in the past to there being this core cadre of unbelievable lacrosse teams right at the top, right, like your top 3 or 4 or 5 teams, and that's certainly still true. I mean, you know, we know who the powers are, right, but at the same time. A Penn State, for example, a Penn State loss mid-season that seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. By the end of the season, we knew Penn State was one of the better lacrosse teams in the country, and they ended up being the number 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament, and then looked awesome in the championship game and all the way through the tournament, right? Like, lest we forget, Northwestern squeaked by Hopkins in the semi. Penn State clobbered Rutgers, and that was a Rutgers team that, right, had beaten, was it Michigan to get to that game? It was either Michigan or Maryland. And then you look at like the way Hopkins played to get as far as they did in the tournament, et cetera. And then you see like a Denver, like there are a lot of good teams in lacrosse right now. Like you get to the top 10 or 15, like those teams are going to trade hammer blows in this tournament. It's not going to be an easy run for sure. But I think, Scuzz, to what you were saying, like the fact that they played this schedule to get to this point helps them because they've seen these teams. They know what they're going to be getting.
They're so well prepared, and they've had to respond themselves, not just in close games, but respond to really disappointing, painful losses. To get this revenge game against Penn State was, you know, I gotta think that's a nice mental boon for them. They're so good. They've got the best lacrosse player of forever, who's going to set the goals record, you know, when she gets on the field for the round 1 game against whoever it is. They've got Maddie Taylor, who is a potential future Tewaarton winner. Monty is having a fantastic year. Kuykendall, of course, is, you know, second only to Skane in this dynasty and run as just pure excellence. Sammy White on the defensive side, Sam Smith in the circle. They're just utterly dominant in every phase of the game. And to see, I'll be honest, like one of my absolute favorite things about lacrosse, and my wife hasn't watched much of it over the course of, you know, actually since our nieces graduated, our nieces all played lacrosse, but she came into the living room on Saturday, right after Northwestern scored, and I think it was a Monty who, and you know, sick goal, and like throws her stick, and Emery's like, "Oh, she allowed to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, they got to check the stick after every goal." And it, you know, of course, jogged her memory. She remembered it, but it's like my absolute favorite thing is that on every goal in this sport, there's a literal bat flip, and it's so much fun. Like the emotion of watching lacrosse is. It's utterly unique and so enjoyable, and you know, getting to follow this crew on, you know, their final run, their last dance as they go through the tournament here is going to be glorious.
It is, and again, like for anyone who can get out on the 12th, like get out. It's funny. I think in terms of, it reminds me of the game where Boo set the record, where I'm like, let's get that Skane goal out of the way as quick as we can. Let's just get that one done and dusted, and then we can go on. And hopefully that will happen. But, I mean, as we were talking about earlier, Skane, Taylor, Sam Smith, Dylan Amonte, man, it's like, it is one of those sports where when you see players like that in person, you're like, holy cow. And then to watch Kuykendall, like, you know, out there on the left in her spot, just orchestrating. orchestrating
Conducting,
the attack.
if you will.
Conducting, as it was. I mean, it truly, like, we made that up, but it truly is. It feels like she's doing that. Like, she's conducting and orchestrating all of the time. It's just, you can just feel someone seeing the whole field at all times and just making everything happen. I mean, what a team. What a freaking team. It is an absolutely epic collection of talent. And that's, that and having the greatest coach in lacrosse history, if not college sports history. I mean, Kelly Monty-Hiller's in the conversation. And you add all that together, and they are an absolute dynamo, and it's a thrill to watch them play.
So, yeah, they get the winner of Denver-Stanford, and then also in their bracket is Penn, Richmond, Loyola Maryland, and Duke. So that's the bottom half of their bracket. So we will see what happens on the 12th and go from there. Have you ever thought about building a Westlaw Pirates-like community for your business? If so, we've got your solution. Teamworks Media, a brand marketing and content company, is here to help you tell your brand story better. Better yet, you can work directly with the founder, Jay Sharman, known on this podcast as Like the Posts. The same expertise he's brought to brands like ESPN, the Big Ten Conference, and Northwestern University are now available to you in an affordable way, directly with this Wildcat superfan. Contact Jay directly at 312-446-9435 or jay@teamworksmedia.com to learn how to elevate your brand story. What else do we have to talk about? I mean, we kind of covered the whole day from food to water. We had start with some food, ended with some drink.
Ended with me in the drink. Yeah, exactly.
Women's golf is in the NCAA regionals right now.
Yeah, they are
online today.
They are 4 under par.
WRNS
They're sitting at third place, 4 under par right now after today's round.
Yep, and I think two of the women on the team are -2, which has them tied for 4th overall in like the individual rankings. So they're in a great spot. Men's golf, I don't know if that regional has started, but men's golf is in the regional this week as well. And spring sports. It's been a really good spring.
Yeah, Northwestern women's tennis also. Sad end of their season. They made the postseason, played Arizona State. They lost 4-3. Didn't go the way that they wanted it to, but strong season for them. Didn't get the ending that they wanted, but again, it's one more excellent spring sports team that Northwestern fielded this season, and again, like, they didn't get the run they were looking for compared to some of these other runs, but still, like, be proud that it's hard to name a women's spring sports team that Northwestern is not absolutely incredible at. So kudos to them as well.
Anything else to mention before we get out of here?
Just thanks again to everyone who came out. Thanks to Brad May for organizing this, for setting up the WNRS weekend. And thank you to everyone who came by the tailgate, everyone we had a great conversation with. We always are hammering home how special this community is and how this community is so dynamic but so intimate at the same time, and that you have the ability to have so many conversations with so many different great groups of people in such a small confined space in such a short amount of time. This tailgate was exactly that. It was everything we wanted it to be. I'm sure we're going to run it back next year. And I think from a strictly tailgate perspective, right, got everyone stoked for this football season to get here as soon as possible, and wherever the tailgates are going to be going down for that, to get here as soon as possible so that we can all get together again, because it's just so much flippin' fun.
Yeah, this has been a hallmark of, and John, you've carried the torch for this so much these past season and a half, but the hallmark of our tailgates has become just a place to come and hang out and chat Northwestern sports, or anything else for that matter. But it's just that's what we're here for, and that's what we want y'all to be here for as well. So join us, hang out, and celebrate this community and these teams, and it's why we do this.
So with that, we'll go ahead and leave it there for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And email the show, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics, and look for us in the west side of Bryant Field flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Scasbo, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.